Recording.
Okay, great. So, hi guys, we're here today with another Outstanding Ohio Lunch and Learn. Today we have a special guest, Outstanding Ohioan Meghan DiCocco, to give us 10 tweaks to level up our calendar and help us get a handle on our time, which I know I could sure use. Meghan's known professionally as Meghan the Organization Mentor, where she helps busy young professionals get on their path to cash through time management, financial education, and life organization. When she isn't working, she's busy crafting, decluttering, reading, and watching her son's baseball games. She lives in Broadview Heights with her husband, 2 boys, and 2 girls. Welcome, Meghan.
Great. Thanks so much
I'm in
for
Brecksville, Meghan.
Oh, nice. So we're just like neighbors.
We're neighbors.
Awesome. So I have always been interested in a lot of things and involved in a lot of things. And because of that, I tend to say yes to more things than I should. Show of hands, anybody else tends to overcommit themselves? So I learned long ago that I needed to have some strategies on how to fit all this stuff into my calendar. So in addition to this business, my husband and I own and operate 6 car washes in the city of Cleveland. And that's why I had to run to the door because an order from Colorado finally showed up 3 days late. When we're not running a business and I'm not running this business, my boys are involved in both school and travel sports, which basically means I'm at a sporting event every day. We love to do home renovations. So there's always some kind of home project going on. And all of that stuff has to get fit in with the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, and all the things that happen in running a household. So there's a lot going on, and I needed to find a system that was going to help me manage everything without being a crazy person. So today I just wanted to share, 10 things that work for me. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll find 1 or 2 tips that you can start integrating in your calendars so that your lives can be a little bit more sane. Before we started, Erin sent me a list of some of the biggest challenges that everyone was saying, and I wanted to read those out. And if there's something else that's a challenge for you that you haven't mentioned, put it in the chat so we can make sure we talk about it today. So some things on the list were not letting myself get overwhelmed, distractions, consistency, getting everything done, finding the perfect schedule, keeping with what I said I would do, time, not enough of it, motivation, being a nursing mama, so somebody is a new mom, and focus. So all of the tips that I'm going to talk about are going to address those. But if there's something else that's really bugging you, please put it in the chat and I'll make sure that we can, cover it in some way, shape, or form. So for starters, raise your hand if you're actually using a calendar. So hopefully a lot of people have their cameras off. Yep. All right, good. I see one. Perfect. So no matter who you are or what your lifestyle is or what type of business you're running or what type of an employee you are, we all need 2 things. You need a calendar, whether that is the wall calendar, or if you're like me, the big Franklin planner, or if you're more techy and you got a Google Calendar, or if you use all 3 like I do, you need a place to write down your stuff. And when I'm talking about writing down, I am a writer, but if you are an electronic person, anytime I say write, just assume that Google Docs and, Evernote and all those things are just fine. So what works for you? So you need not only a calendar to write down all of your important dates, but you also need a to-do list. Because let's say you're running around during your day, and then you get a call from your kid. Mom, I forgot my red belt for the baseball team. Can you bring my belt to the game? So I'm, going to a work appointment, but I need to have a place to write down baseball belt. Or my husband calls me. He's like, I know you're running, because we have Life 360 on our phones and we can see where each other is at any time. I know you're driving by Giant Eagle. Can you please, right? Can you please go pick up bread or whatever? So you need a place where how are you gonna write that down? Because stuff happens, your phone rings, you get distracted. So at a baseline, you need a calendar and a place to write down those to-dos. and whatever works for you. Like I said, I keep this big Franklin planner because it's just awesome. And I like purple pens and writing things down. So that's the first thing. You need to make sure that your to-do list and your calendar, whatever type you're using, are with you. Let's say you scheduled a client appointment and you don't have your calendar with you. Somebody likes their orange highlighter. Totally love color coding, and I use stickers too. So, but you need to have it with you. So if you're a techie person and it's, your Google Calendar or your iCal on your phone, or if you carry your planner with you all the time, you need to have a place. Or if you're low tech and you write it on Post-it notes, there needs to be a system to at least write those things down. That's the first step. So we're going to capture the information. And one of the things people were talking about, I heard a lot of fitting everything in and overwhelmed. Step 2 is a technique that I love to do, not only with time management, but with life organization too. It is something like I call a brain dump. Anybody ever heard of a brain dump? Okay. So this is what it is. You're going to take a paper, or again, like I said, if you're a techie person, electronic document. You are going to write down all of the swirling things that are in your brain, all the things that you're thinking that you have to do. I got to remember birthdays and anniversaries and client appointments, and when is my newsletter, and did I send my Instagram post, and I really need to learn how to do LinkedIn learning, and I need a birthday gift for Clara, and I need that, the bread at the store, and we need to get a price on interior doors. All those things that you're keeping in your brain, get them down on paper. Because when you're trying to keep all of that stuff in your brain at any one time, it is creating a background of stress that is going throughout your day. And a lot of times, if you're having a normal week, you can probably keep a lot of those things in your brain, and that's fine. But what if some kind of unexpected emergency happens, or there's a crisis, or something happens at work, a client thing falls through, and now you're in crisis mode, and all those things you were trying to keep in your brain have just fluttered off into like no man's land. So by taking that brain dump and spending 15 minutes and writing all of it down, you know that I have not lost it. And now you can start working a way to put those random things into your schedule. So I do this weekly during my desk day, something we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. But I also do that anytime that I am starting to feel the overwhelm. I know somebody said they were feeling overwhelmed with their calendar. When I feel the overwhelm, I sit down there and I just write, get it all out, so I know I haven't forgotten it. So a brain dump. And now we're going to start building like the baseline of our calendar. If you haven't already, it is time to start scheduling all those regularly occurring things in your calendar. All those birthdays you have to remember, put them all down. If you're using an electronic calendar of some sort, you can hit the repeat annually on April 13th. And every year on April 13th, that person's birthday, or that customer anniversary, or whatever. You have those. Hot tip, if you're using an electronic calendar, I put the year they were born. So for my husband, his birthday is in October. I put Jack 1973. And every year when it comes up on my electronic calendar, I know if it's a milestone birthday or not. Now, this might seem dumb because you're like, of course I'm going to remember milestone birthdays, but no, you're not. Last week, I thought my parents were at their 55th anniversary. Turns out it was 57. So, so have it there, and then it's always there for you. Other things that I like to program, bill dates. Chase credit card is due the 12th of every month for our work. I put in my payroll dates. I had to submit payroll this morning. My guys would be really sad if they did not get paid. Tax, there's a lot of small business owners on here. RETA tax, quarterly withholdings, vending and sales tax. Just put them on the calendar. So you don't have to be surprised when July 21st comes. You're like, oh my gosh, the vending tax is due today. It's there, and it'll come up and remind you. Let me give you an example of when this did not work for me before I was using this to kind of illustrate my point. my kids were little, we were on vacation in August because my kids play travel ball, and that August is the only time we can go on vacation before baseball ends and school starts. And we were traveling, and turns out it was my mother-in-law's birthday, but we did not remember because this was before Google Calendar, and I didn't have my planner with me. And we check into the hotel, we get the kids settled. I boot up the computer to look for work stuff. It's 10:30 at night. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's your mom's birthday. We totally forgot. Turns out my sister-in-laws called my mother-in-law 3 times that day, asking if Meghan and Jack called them. You would have thought that they would have like called us and said, hey, it's mom's birthday. But anyway, they didn't. It is now scheduled on all of my calendars, all 3 calendars that I keep. I will never forget my mother-in-law's birthday again. And I don't want you to have to go through that awkward situation. And another time this saved me was actually yesterday. I told you that our work credit card is due on the 12th. And I had entered the bill into my Quicken, and I had done all the calculations for, we have 7 corporations, how much each of the 6 corporations had to send to the 7th to pay the bill. I had done all that, but I hadn't actually paid the bill. But thankfully, the reminder was on my calendar that said, pay the credit card. So I was able to go down to the downstairs office and pay the credit card without having, a late fee and all the angst that would go with that. So if you can take some of those things that you have to do all the time anyway and get them regularly scheduled on your calendar, it's going to make your life way easier. For those that are using a hard copy of the calendar, all I do is at the end of every year or at the end of every month, I take the last calendar and I sync all the dates over. So before you toss your old calendar, sync all the dates over. Just hot tip, so you don't have to redo this every year. And then I alluded to this, you need to have a weekly desk day, a day where you deal with all of this, all of the dates that you have to put in. So for me, on Friday, every Friday, I sync up my calendar. I sync my Google Calendar to my paper calendar, make sure they're both saying the same thing. And I also, on Fridays, I pay the bills, and I also look at what's coming ahead. So what's coming in the next week? I need to buy a gift for my sister-in-law and a gift for my niece. We have birthdays coming up. I need to make decorations for the baseball varsity senior day that somehow I already said that I overcommit myself. Yeah, I got myself in charge of that somehow. Not sure how that happened, but that's happening next week. So once a week, have a time scheduled in your day that you handle all the paperwork. You handle the bills, the reconciling, the check writing, all of those different things, so that you're not worrying about it during the week. Now, for some of you, if your business is busier, maybe you have to do that multiple times a week. Maybe you do bills and paperwork 2 or 3 times a week, but at a minimum, have one day where you handle all of those things and that you know that it's regularly occurring. I also have days for doing laundry, and I also have days for dusting, but we're not here to talk about cleaning. But if that works for you, you might want to have laundry on Thursdays and dusting on Mondays, whatever it is, but definitely for the desk day. And so we all have calendars and we all have to-do lists. And, some of the clients that I work with have calendars and they don't check them ever. So that's great. It's wonderful that you have a calendar and it's hanging on your wall, but if you don't look at it, it's useless. So if that is something that you struggle with, you need to program at least twice a day to check your calendar. If you have to program an alert on your phone, like an alarm before you go to bed, check your calendar, or in the morning, if you need to put a Post-it note on your coffee maker that says check the calendar, or on the bathroom mirror, or on your car keys, whatever it is. But at a minimum, every night you need to check your calendar. You need to see what is happening the next day. A, so you can mentally prepare yourself. B, so that you can get ready. Is it a client appointment that you need to be dressed professionally? Maybe you need to lay out your clothes. One time I went to work with 2 mismatched shoes, a blue one and a navy one, and I had 5 client appointments. But I was getting ready. It was like 6 a.m. It was dark. So I had to walk around all day with mismatched shoes. Maybe you lay out your clothes. Maybe you know you're going to be busy with client meetings and you don't have time to stop for lunch. So you pack a lunch. Or maybe you know you're going to try to squeeze, a couple errands in. Like I need to go pick up our payroll tomorrow and I need to go to UPS store. And so I just go and put the package right there on my front seat. So you have those things so that your mornings can be that much smoother. And in the morning, you should look at your calendar again. Because have you ever had a morning where you get up, you make your coffee, you're getting dressed, and then all hell breaks loose? Like the cat is puking on the floor, the kids are upset about something. So-and-so remember that they had a science project that's due in like a half hour and they need a poster board. Crazy stuff happens, especially if you live with other people. So checking your calendar in the morning, again, just to make sure that you're not forgetting those things that you said that you were committed to doing. So at a minimum, twice a day. When you are checking your calendar, one thing I like to do at night is set my priorities for the next day. And I heard this once and it really struck me. And I finally have decided that I understand why it is true. If you have more than 3 priorities, you have 0 priorities. If you have more than 3 things that are a priority on your list, you really don't have any. And so what I mean is this, like if you can look, you probably can't read this, but I'll show it to you anyway. Like today's to-do list, if you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff written on there. There are some days where I have 25 different things written on my potential to-do list. Do I get them all done? Some days, yeah. Some days, I get 40 things done. And some days you barely get anything done because you've been interrupted or there was a crisis at work or your client had an appointment, something happened. So you need to determine the night before, what are the 3 things that if nothing else got done would make the day a win? Are those 3 things that potentially could move your business along? Are those 3 things that could potentially move your relationship along? Maybe you need to do some nurturing with your relationship. Are those 3 things that could just really bring down your stress level? Washing the toilets is probably not one of the 3 things, unless you haven't done it in like 2 years, and then maybe it is in your house. But making that client call to bring actual income into your business might be a priority. Sending the invoice that I need to the Cleveland police, they wash cars with us. They owe us $3,500. I really need to send the invoice because I would like the $3,500. That's actually a priority for me today, more so than, painting my son's room. So what are 3 things that if nothing else got done and you got those things done, you could feel comfortable at the end of the day? So, and then one of my favorites. All right. We mentioned a to-do list. Who's got a to-do list? Anybody using it? All right. I got a lot of hands. Okay. Everyone's using a to-do list. I learned this to-do list trick about 2 years ago from this woman named April Perry. And she taught me to make a context-based to-do list. So instead of just a big running list of stuff, I break my to-do list into phone calls I have to make, emails I need to send, research I need to do, errands I need to do, work stuff, home stuff. And let me tell you how this helps. There are times when you have unexpected free time in your calendar. I know it's rare, but it does happen sometimes. Let's say traffic was light and you get to your appointment 15 minutes early. Or let's say you're going to pick your daughter up from volleyball practice and they're running late and you're just sitting in the parking lot in the pickup line. Can you use that little snippet of time? If you look at your to-do list and you say, oh, I need to schedule the vet appointment. Can you make that quick call while you're waiting in line? Can you send that quick email? I'm taking this style course right now and I'm looking for a pair of purple ankle pants with a 25-inch inseam. So I have to do some research on that. Could I, while I'm waiting to pick Enzo, that's my youngest, up from his track practice, do that research on my phone? Or I have a couple errands on there. And I know that on Friday, we're driving to North Ridgeville for a baseball tournament. And on the way, I need to drop something off at the baseball store that's out that way. Could I add that to my calendar? Because I have my to-do list broken up into those little chunks, I'm able to kind of slide those random to-dos into the day. Instead of having to, take an entire Saturday to drive, hither and yon all over town just to drop things off, pick things up, make phone calls. So having that context-based to-do list allows you to take advantage of those little bits of time that sometimes spring up. And because it's written down and you're not having to float it around in your mind, you can access it whenever you have a free minute. So let's talk about interruptions. Anybody get interrupted during their days? Anybody get interrupted all day? I was reading a study that said every time you get interrupted, it takes 22 minutes to get back on track. Think about that. 22 minutes. If you get interrupted 3 times in your day, you've already wasted over an hour of your time trying to get back to what you were doing. Some interruptions are inevitable. Sometimes things happen. But one of the things I recommend is that you brainstorm ways to bring those interruptions down. Like, we all have phones. How many of us have phones that are dinging and donging all day? You could be getting client calls. You could be getting texts. You could be email alerts, Pinterest alerts, all your different social media things. Your favorite time-wasting game says, oh, you have new lives now. Did you know you can turn all those notifications off? You just go into the settings. That's on my phone. I have an Android. It's that little gear. You can turn them all off. Now, depending on your business, I understand that sometimes you need to have your phone on at least, or maybe your text messaging. But some of the rest of it, if there's stuff that you can quiet, turn it off. Same thing with your computer. I keep my email closed most of the time, unless it's time to check my email, because otherwise I have these alerts. You're typing, you're working on a client project, and it's like, oh, blah, 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 we need stuff for baseball, or blah, blah, blah. Oh, shoes are on sale, or whatever it happens to be. And if somebody else is hijacking your time. So take control of your time, turn those things that you need to have off. And if there are times that you really can disconnect, put your phone on do not disturb, even if it's just for a half hour. I like to use, can you see that? I love my timer, love it. I use it a lot for when I have to have a focused work block. I turn those interruptions down. I set my timer for 15, 30, 45 minutes. And just for that period of time, I work on the thing. Hopefully it's one of those 3 priorities we set, the thing that I'm trying to get done without interruption. If you work in an office space, maybe you can close your office door. If you don't have office doors, maybe you can put headphones on. I work from home, and my upstairs office, I can see my kitchen, my living room, my family room, and my mud room, all from right here. So when my family's here, I put my big headphones on. Even if nothing is actually going on, I just put them on so that they don't talk to me. So can you signal to your coworkers or your family members that this is a time that I cannot be disrupted? So I can't stress that enough. Another study I showed for white collar workers who work an 8-hour shift, they said they are productive on average 2 hours and 34 minutes out of those 8 hours. 2 hours. And that's just for people who are working for someone else. A lot of you, myself included, we're working for ourselves. We don't have we can't waste 5 of our 8 hours a day. I mean, time is money. So how can we reduce those interruptions, and then use a timer if you have to. The phone timer, I use like a little just tiny beeping timer. I even have one that buzzes so it doesn't interrupt people. Can you use that for a focused work block to just really get some things done? Yep, I see your timer there, Butch. And I also use my timer when I'm procrastinating on something I really don't want to do. Like, for example, this is a household example. I hate mopping my floors. I hate it. My entire house is wood floors, so you can't just mop one room. I have an open concept. If you do one room, you got to do them all. So I hate it. But I use my timer. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work for a half hour. And, most of the time I get it done. So it can not only be a focused work block, but it can be a time to like kind of push you to get something done. Right. And when the timer goes off, take a break. Because, hey, you at least did your 15, 30, whatever, 45 minutes. Celebrate that. You actually did it. So I can't stress enough how important it is to reduce the interruptions and to find a way to have those focused work blocks. And then another thing that kind of goes in with that is actually being on time. Now, hopefully this isn't a struggle for you, but some people, not only is it important to keep your commitments, it's important to be there in a timely manner because it shows both respect for yourself and respect for the people who are meeting you. Now, there are some people who are chronically late, and it's not that they have a defect in their personality. They don't. Most of these people are chronically optimistic as well. They remember that one time when traffic was light, parking was ample, there were no cops anywhere to give you a ticket, and they got to wherever they were going in 20 minutes. Most of the time it takes 35, but that one time it took 20, and that's how they calculate. Okay, I need 20 minutes. I remember doing this back in high school. My boyfriend lived about 35 minutes from home. I had to be home at 11. This one time, though, I got home in a half hour. I didn't hit a light. I didn't hit a train. There was no cops. I was probably speeding, but I didn't get caught. Made it home. And guess what? Every weekend, instead of being responsible and leaving at like 10:20 to get home at 11, I'd be sailing out there at 11:30 and late every single time. And then grounded. So, because I didn't calculate what is really involved. So hopefully you're using your calendar to put your appointments in there. But one of the things I started doing, especially as my schedule became busier, and especially because, I became a mom and I got to cart people around, all over the town, is I actually calculate my departure time too. So, for example, I have to go down to the city of Cleveland water department because they wash cars with us and have a meeting with the lady. I have to be there at 3:00 on Thursday. So I've already gotten on my phone to see how long it's going to take from my house to 1201 Lakeside. And it's going to take me 19 minutes, it says. But I have no idea where I'm going to park. So I'm going to add 10 minutes because I figure I'm going to have to drive around and then I got to go through security. So I'm going to add at least 10 minutes. And so let's say it's going to take me a half hour. If I have a place to go that is a half hour or less away, I add 10 minutes to that. I'm going to give myself at least 40 minutes. And I'm going to program on my calendar. Not only do I have an appointment with Ebony at 3, I need to leave my house by 2:20. And my electronic calendar is going to ding at 2:00 that says you need to leave at 2:20. So really calculating, back calculating all the different steps that you have to do and the supplies that you have to get and the elevator that you have to wait for and the parking ticket that you have to get. Go backwards from that event and then build in a buffer. How much nicer is it to show up 5-10 minutes early for an appointment and have time to kind of settle yourself, read your notes, use the facilities, take a drink of water, versus coming in, hair sticking up, sweating because you've been running down the sidewalk, looking completely frazzled and off focus. Oh yeah, Therese, how often do I check my email during the day? I probably check mine like 3 times a day. Morning, middle of the day. And unless I'm at a baseball game, and sometimes if the game is slow, sometimes I'll be checking my email on my phone instead of watching my kids, but during the working day 3 times. So calculating that time buffer and really programming.
Baseball is always slow, just so you know.
Well, especially too, because I have a son who is a junior and he is playing varsity baseball, but he's a junior. So he's not getting a ton of playing time right now, but it's fun. But yeah, it is a slower game for sure. So Yeah, so programming those departure times, building in that buffer in your schedule. And for you who are having client appointments and client phone calls, whether in person or Zoom, build a buffer between your appointments. I don't know if you're like me. I tend to be super long-winded anyway. I do. I actually have a timer running to make sure I don't go over today. Give yourself 15, 20 minutes between appointments in case somebody's late, you're late, a customer asks an important question. So you have that time so you don't have to be so frazzled. And the last thing before we kind of talk about some of the questions, and this is kind of controversial when I bring it up with my clients, is say no. I was in a training with this gentleman called Derek Sievers, and he said, if it is not a hell yes, it is a no. And I was like, what? I mean, I already told you I'm the person who says yes to all kinds of stuff. At one point, I was the president of my networking association, my alumni association, the condo board. I was working 60 hours and I was a newlywed all at the same time. And then I would get stressed and freak out and cry. But that was years ago. I've improved. So I am a person who likes to say yes. I like to do a lot of things. But he said, if it is not a hell yes, it is a no. And it took me a while to really digest that. I think it's easy to say no to things that we don't want to do. Like, Megan, don't you want to go skydiving? No, I do not. Megan, you want to go pet some Madagascar hissing cockroaches? No way. But it's like, Megan, do you want to go to the beach show, even though you have a training at the same time? Well, yeah, I really kind of do want to go to the beach show, but the training is more important. So I think it's harder to say yes to something good, but sometimes you need to keep that space for something great. So I have gotten into a habit of when someone asks me something, let me check my calendar. And I do get back to them, but let me check my calendar and then, no, Therese, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. I would love to get together with you sometime in Brecksville, but this week is not great. So saying no. So when you look at that brain dump list that you wrote down, are there some things that you can say no to? Or are there some things that you can delegate? Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. You don't have to do everything. And if you have kids and they are older than 3, they can certainly do stuff in the house with supervision, and it's not going to be as good as you do. But some dusting is better than no dusting. So utilize those resources. So saying no to some of those things. Or, you're growing your business and you're like, I need to do Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and TikTok and Pinterest and YouTube and pick 2. Focus on those and then worry about the other ones. So I think it really helps with the overwhelm when you actually take some of those things off your calendar. So just to kind of review, and then let's talk about some of the questions that might come up, and I want to actually address some of these top challenges that people have said in their emails. We talked about having a calendar. We talked about having a to-do list. We talked about checking those things, checking the calendar and the to-do list twice a day. We talked about doing a brain dump. We talked about setting your priorities. We talked about, the categorized to-do list. Love the categorized to-do list. It's amazing. I get so much more done. We talked about dealing with the interruptions, figuring out ways to minimize those interruptions, and then using a timer or some type of device to give yourself a focused time. Unless you are, a heart surgeon, most likely you don't have to be available every second of every day. Right? We're not available when we're taking a shower. So just pretend like you're taking a 45-minute shower. Do your work. We talked about building in that time buffer, programming our departure time so that we can get to wherever we're going in a sane manner, and then saying no. Saying just no to some things or delegating some things to give ourselves that little bit of a break. So what questions are coming up before I address some of these things from the email? Anybody got anything?
So in checking your email 3 times a day, so I had tried and schedule that, how long do you allow then for actively working in your email? I'm trying not to allow that. A lot of times the email becomes just, which it doesn't really need. I know it doesn't need to do that. So how, do you allow a half hour, 20 minutes? Because I believe that I could probably make it take a half an hour, but could it really only take 15 minutes? I don't know. I'm just wondering, where do you start?
So 2 things. First, I do some work in the morning before I check my email. Checking the email is not the first thing I do in the morning. And the reason for that is because when you check your email, you're let somebody else hijack your schedule. Somebody else's priorities become yours. So I recommend, if you guys are able to, the first little working block of the day, even if it's only 15 minutes, you do something that's important for you before you get, maybe one of those 3 priorities before you get sidetracked. So I do that first. After coffee time, I check my email. I give myself, Therese, about 15 minutes, but my email boxes, I don't know if you're utilizing, I really make use of folders. So I really limit to what is actually coming in the inbox, because all this, stuff I want to read goes into the stuff to read folder, and the sales stuff goes in the sale folder. So I don't have as many that I have to address, and I have made use of the unsubscribe. It's okay to, there's so much good information out there. There really is. But you know what? There's only so many things you can read in one day. So I spend about 15 minutes. I then, if there's something that I need to respond to specifically, like I got to write an email back to Erin about this time management thing we're doing, I actually schedule that on the calendar for later in that afternoon. So I usually pick a time that I know, like 12 to 12:30, I'm free today. That's when I'm going to respond to it. I don't often, respond immediately unless it's a crisis, but most things are not. So if you can make use of folders, and if you can then select a time that's going to work for you to respond to them, I think that'll help a little bit. Because, the email box is like this deep, dark hole that you can just get lost in. Once a week on desk day, I usually go through, and that's a time where I kind of get rid of a lot of the emails. Like if I haven't read it, I'm sure it was good. Remember how sometimes we have to say no to something good to be ready for something great? Those are all great articles that I'm getting, but you know what? I'm not going to read them. Those are amazing sale coupons, but I'm not going shopping this week. So we're just going to eliminate those, or at least put them in the coupon folder to look at in case I end up at the store. So. Any other questions coming up right now? I wanted to touch on a couple of things. So the nursing mom out there, I remember when I was nursing my kids, and there's a lot of time that you're just sitting on the couch or sitting in the chair with the baby. Can't really run around and do much. But this is a time where a context-based to-do list could be really, really effective. Because even if you're holding the baby, you could probably do some research on your phone. You could probably send that quick email. You could probably call your mom and, have the family check in so no one hates you if you don't call enough. Depending on whether you're right-handed or left-handed, I used to write a lot when I was feeding the kids. So that might be a time where you maybe plan some of your more sedentary research activities to kind of take advantage of those. And just know that if you've got little ones, it is just a season of life. I mean, and that's your priority right now is taking care of the little ones. And because then you're going to turn around, they're going to be 17, they're going to be like taller than you, and they stink and whatever. Well, if you have girls, maybe they don't, but boys do. Someone talked about motivation. And the one thing I can say about the motivation is after you do your brain dump list, is really look at your prioritization. There might be things that have been on that list for weeks, months, years. And you know, maybe you don't have to do them. My neighbors we used to all like aerate our lawns every year. Both neighbors would aerate, so I would aerate my lawn too. And then one year I was like, I just didn't feel like doing it. And you know what? Nothing happened. My lawn didn't look any better than the years that I aerated. I was less stressed. None of the neighbors were hating me. So apparently it was fine. I just didn't do it. Same thing with mulching. We used to do our mulch every year, and it's kind of a thing, and you got a wheelbarrow and drag it all around. And one year we were just busy, and we didn't put new mulch down. And the yard was fine. I mean, I had to pull a couple more weeds. I just didn't do it. Or my kids were little, you know, you have to bring snacks to school all the time. And there's some moms who are just amazing bakers, and they make these beautiful creations. And I was like, you know, kids like wrapped packaged Rice Krispies just as much as those other things. And everybody's got food allergies, so they can read the label. So sometimes you just got to take stuff off the list. So the person who's struggling with motivation, I would say, look at the things on there. Are they things that you actually want to do, or things that you just think you should do? That society, social media, your friends, whoever is thinking you should do. And maybe try to take some of those things off your list. The person who said, keeping with what I said I would do. I think this goes back to using your calendar and using your to-do list. Like when you commit to something, immediately writing it down so that you don't forget. And then also working with that time buffer, you know, scheduling the time, but scheduling the departure time. So if you said, yes, I'm going to go to this appointment, you've built that time in so that you can do that effectively. Keeping up with that, what I would also say is using those focused work blocks and eliminating those interruptions. Like if you have something that you have to do today and it is a priority, then you have to eliminate the interruptions and have that focused time. I remember back in college, I seemed like I always did much better under pressure. You know, when test is happening the next day and suddenly I'm cramming all night. Wonderful. I think work expands to the time allotted. So if you are struggling with that, you know, set a timer, give yourself a deadline, and really focus on that. And the other things can wait. Remember, not everything can be a priority at the same time. Doesn't mean everything's not important. There are important things, but you can only focus on so many things at once. The person who said they were having a challenge with consistency, I would say a couple things. Number one, make sure you are checking your calendar at least twice a day, and you're utilizing, I mean, you have those things, those regularly occurring things already scheduled. Derek, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. I didn't want to interrupt you. My question is, how did you and your husband get on the same page? The question I ask about this is, my wife is more of a paper person. She'll write things on the fridge. I'm more digital. I like the Google calendars. And we struggle a lot with getting on the same page about what needs to be done, or just priorities, because we both have different systems.
Yeah, okay. I can totally relate, Derek, because as you can see, I'm more of a paper person, and my husband thinks everything should go on the computer. So what I have done is I've had a wall calendar our entire marriage, especially since we had kids and we had to like train the kids to look at the calendar. I keep two systems. I keep my wall calendar, I keep my planner, and we keep a Google Calendar to keep everybody on the same page. So anything that the family, or at least the two of us, need to know about goes on the Google Calendar. So for me, on Fridays when I have my desk day, I sync my wall calendar that the kids look at, my planner, which I carry with me, and the Google Calendar. So it sounds like a lot of work, but it really, for us, that works. We also have a joint to-do list on there. I know some people use Alexa and Siri, like, Siri, add this to my shopping list. I don't do that because it kind of freaks me out. But we really make use of the Google Calendar, and we have the calendar shared, and he gets the same, he gets to know that I'm going to cardio dance at 6:30 on Wednesday nights. It's on his calendar too. And just like I need to know that he's going to, whatever car wash convention stuff. So for us, we both had to give a little. He has to, look at the wall calendar sometimes, and we both have to use the Google Calendar. So I would maybe challenge, can you come up with at least a basic format of, an electronic calendar that you can use, and then maybe some type of paper thing. Like our grocery list is always paper. It's stuck on the fridge. And when somebody goes, we just take a picture and send it to the other one. Like, we need eggs. I think half of my text messages to my husbands are, my husband. I don't have multiple husbands, sorry. my one husband. Most of my text messages to my husband are like grocery items. So that's what I would say, Derek. If that doesn't work, send me an email. Maybe we can kind of brainstorm a little bit further. But yeah, that's what we do over here.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? One of the email questions was on focus, and I don't remember who that was, but all I can say to you is minimize the interruptions and really make use of the timer. We don't want to be like those people who are only effective for 2 hours and 34 minutes of our day, especially since most of us are self-employed. We can't afford to be like that. So using that focus time and building in rewards for yourself. Okay, my guilty pleasure is this game called Meow Match on my phone. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like Candy Crush, but with cats, and they meow, whatever. But I make sure that I do my focused blocks of whatever type of work that I am doing. And then I let myself play Meow Match for 10 minutes, if that's what I need to kind of get myself through my day. Or I do a block of work, and then I do a block of housework, and I do a block of work, and I do a block of car wash work. So there are days where I set my timer a dozen times during the day. It's always going off. So for those who are struggling with focus, I would really recommend using a timer. It has been invaluable for me. And my family has been trained. They know when the timer is like, what do we have to do? Even my oldest, when he was little, he would bring the timer over and he would put me in timeout sometimes because I use the timer for timeout for the kids. He'd be like, Mom, you have to sit in timeout. And as a tired new mom, I was like, okay, I'm happy to sit in the corner of the dining room. That's awesome. So for the nursing mama out there, timers work great. And it helps with the kids too. So, and Anne says doing the context-based list helps with focus, as you can batch like tasks together with helps with focus. Absolutely. And I think the context-based to-do list also helps with errands. And when I'm doing errands during the day, I like to plan them. This might just be my brain, but I like to plan them in like a clockwise pattern. I like to say, okay, well, I got these 5 things that, which one can I do so that I can do them all in order without having to backtrack? It's like a challenge to me. So having that in that context-based list, knowing what errands I'm going to try to squeeze in today, it kind of, helps you plan your flow a little bit better. I love those context-based to-do lists. Anything else? Well, I just recommend, if you'd like to connect with me on Facebook, I'm Meghan the Organization Mentor. Actually, in March, I did a 17-day time management challenge, and all the posts are still in there and all of the videos. So it was 17 days of implementing these time management tricks into your life. So if you'd like to find me on Facebook, it's Meghan with an H, the Organization Mentor. There's also a link in there to join my newsletter list. I send out time management and organization and financial wellness tips. So if you're interested in any of those, feel free to connect. I'll send you all a follow-up email so you'll have my email. If you have any questions, I would love to help. I love organizing and I love working with calendars, and I especially love organizing other people. So if you need help, feel free to reach out. I would be, more than happy to help you out.
Thank you, Megan. It was great.
Thanks.
Her newsletter is great. So definitely sign up for that. Yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time. I hope everybody got some benefit out of that. And I know I've been trying to do the 3 things to focus on priorities every day, and that's been helping. And yeah, but still other ways to improve, I'm sure. Upcoming events, we've got 2 networking events coming up. We are next Friday, 9 a.m. in person at Purposeful Eats in Sharon Center. Anyone wants to join us for that. And then we're going to do our virtual monthly networking on Thursday, April 29th from 12 to 1. And our lunch and learn next month, you guys will be the first to know. It's going to be May 11th. And the topic of market research for content marketing. So how to do a little bit of research about what your content should be for your marketing. All right.
Great. Thank you so much, Erin.
Yeah.